Welcome to another episode of the Refined Peasants podcast. I'm Wyatt.
I'm Garrett.
I'm Nick.
Alright, let's get after it. Alright, and today we're going to be talking about HR1, that's House Resolution Bill 1, and basically it's expanding voting rights, and I'm sure we got a little bit more detail on that. What can you tell us?
Alright, so the actual act's called the For the People Act. I think we all want to just point out that Democrats are great at naming their fucking bullshit. So what we've had, the Equality Act, and now the For the People Act.
Don't forget the Patriot Act way back with Clinton.
Well, that wasn't
That
Clinton.
was
That was
Bush.
Bush. Jesus Christ.
I don't remember these people. I wasn't born.
Anyway, so the whole point of why naming it so well is because no one wants to fight the Equality Act. Like, you don't want to be on the wrong side of the For the People Act. Like, it's just, it's great optics. More like terrible optics for your opponent. But it's a sweeping vote reform bill at the federal level. Do you guys want to discuss? So I guess we should discuss where it is right now as far as voting regulations. So we already have a set amount of federal standards. But for the most part, each state actually gets to decide how to conduct its own elections. Right? You know, when to start taking votes, when to start and when to stop receiving votes. Mail-in balloting, absentee balloting, all of these have different regulations in each state. I mean, pretty much the only universal things are when to start in-person voting and the voting age. Certain people don't have the right to vote, like felons, illegal immigrants, stuff like that. Different states also have different requirements. Some require a photo ID. Some require you just show up and want to vote. Looking at you, California. So what do you guys got?
So why do you think this is a big deal now?
Because everyone hated 2020 election.
Well,
so Republicans.
So not the winners.
Republicans hated the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to get into is this is going to expand a lot of what happened in 2020. So the mail-in balloting, the absentee balloting, it's trying to make it more accessible and more easily used in every election from now on. And honestly, I could see this coming a mile away. When Democrats won by 6 million votes, and we had such a huge... I don't know if any, our listeners know this, but we had a huge turnout for this election. I mean, it was... I think it was something like 90-something% of the actual voting-aged people in America voted. Like, voter turnout was insane this election.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me on that percentage, but I know it's high. But so Democrats want to naturally keep the things that benefited them, and they've got some stuff in here that's frankly hard to argue with. I've looked it over. We would discuss the bullet points earlier, like we're going to do now, and I mean I've got some issues with a few of them, but for the most part, depending on your position, I think it's going to be hard to argue. Against it.
Yeah, I think it's looking at the bill. So I think the reason it's been mostly partisan is because you couldn't read the whole bill. That's just common in politics. So it's like if your House leader just says, "Hey, don't vote for it," then you're just not going to vote for it. And the Democrats, it's the opposite. So they don't know, so they've just decided to vote yes on it.
Right. So Republicans are being told all right, don't vote on it. Well, I'm not going to read the whole bill, so I'm going to vote no on it.
Right.
Which is asinine.
Yeah.
Read the fucking... you guys got one job. Read the fucking
There
bills.
should at least be a executive summary or a brief, something that could tell you the key points in this bill in detail. I don't mean just the general, headings. But I tell you what, I think the reason this is becoming, a controversial thing... So this was a high turnout election. Those, over the past, 3-4 decades have benefited Democrats the most. So they're trying to get as many people to the polls as possible.
Because that benefits them.
When it's a low turnout election, you get people like Trump.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily like they ran a shitty candidate in 2016, and that's why Trump won.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton's the worst political
candidate ever.
Yeah.
Like, a bunch of people aren't against women presidents; they're just against her. But
yeah.
But I think so. Democrats, it's not that they want as many people voting as possible because they understand like the net benefit that they receive is better. Because whenever more people vote, it tends to help out the Democrats.
Well, and that's evidence. Like, apparently they've got like a slight majority, 51,
right.
52%.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got independent voters, which swung heavily Democrat this election. But how many of them are there? How many people switch sides from the Republican Party to vote for? I mean, I would say people who are strictly going to vote Democrat, it's a very bare majority over people who are strictly going to vote Republican. It's just all the independents.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, so Republicans are way more likely to vote every single election. It's like the same Republicans vote every single year, whereas like Democrats, they're less likely. So like if you run a shitty candidate like Hillary Clinton, they just won't vote. Or they'll vote like Green Party. Jill Stein got like 3% of the vote in 2016. And what's his name? It was Gary Johnson. He got another couple percent. I think it added up. So like third parties got like 6% total, which was a huge margin compared to what they normally get. I think the biggest before them was like Ross Perot. It was back before I was even a thought.
Twinkle in Dad's eye.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think each party's just looking after their own interest.
That pretty well sums it up. As far as why it's partisan. But so I guess we can go ahead and start. We're gonna go bullet point by bullet point and have a little discussion about each one. There are several bullet points here. Now I think the devil's gonna be in the wording. So I'm telling you, I'm gonna get this off commoncause.org. It looks like a left-leaning site, to be perfectly honest, based on some of the other articles I've seen. I really think it's framed in, of course, this is bullet points, like I said. So this isn't a full context of what they're trying to do. And I think the devil is going to be in the wording, is my main concern. But if the issues are as written and as presented, then, we're going to get into it. So I'm going to read you from the article. So what is the bill? Here's a quick snapshot and some highlights broken down by three key issue sections of the bill. So the first section is protecting and expanding voting rights and election security. So right there on the surface, sounds great, right? Everyone wants more secure elections. Everyone wants to expand voting rights to people who should have voting rights. We may disagree on what warrants a legal voter, but okay. So automatic voting registration. How do you guys feel about that?
Automatic.
So like, you sound like as soon as you turn 18, it's like the draft, you're automatically in.
Well, you actually have to register. You were registered for the draft when you registered to vote, I thought.
No, so the way they do the draft now is as soon as you turn 18, you're automatically registered.
Yeah, they said
I got my card.
Yeah, you'll get a member.
It used to be you had to go register, and while you were registering for the draft, you registered to vote as well. You might as well do both when you're at the Capitol. So I'm not opposed to that. As soon as you turn 18, you register for the draft, and you get to pick whichever party, independent, Democrat, Republican you want, and then a few weeks later, after they confirm who you are, this is really where you live, they send you in, you're registered. I feel like that would make things a lot more smoothly. Then have to worry about, am I registered or not?
A lot of questions about whether or not I'm able to vote in an election that I want to.
Because God forbid you're not registered, or you forget, and you go to the polls, you can't vote.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. If you're a legal voter who just simply forgot to register in time, that's unfortunate. What? You have anything about automatic?
I'm not against it. I don't. No, I think honestly, the more people voting, the better.
So in automatic registration, I don't know how. If that means that they're gonna mail you the paperwork that you've got to fill in. So you of course got to fill out your address, fill out other information for them. but it's just they're gonna send that information to you automatically instead of upon request, then I don't see a problem with it. I mean, like I said, the more people registered to vote, the better. It's really voter turnout that's an issue for Republicans, not registered voters. And, I'm not just looking out for party interests. I actually want what's best for America. And, like I said, it's hard to fight against automatic voter registration. Because even if you don't want to vote, registering to vote doesn't change that. Like, you can still not vote.
Right.
Second bullet point is online voter registration. I really don't see a problem. A lot of states already do that.
Yeah.
As I said, a bunch of states already do.
Yeah. So I don't see a problem with making that federal. It's kind of the same issue as automatic. Like, I don't see why you need both, unless the automatic is just a going forward kind of thing. But I mean, kind of no net downside. Now this one I do have a problem with, and I'm going to get into why. But this is same day voter registration. So there are states that already have this. I think Michigan's one of them. I know there was a big snafu because I guess people were going through the voting rolls in Michigan and said, like, well, there's only this many registered voters in Michigan, and there's more votes cast than they had registered voters. And it's like, well, a lot of people registered same day, so they weren't counted on the voter rolls, and it's So the reason I'm against same day registration is because the government has no time to verify that you actually are who you say you are. You live where you say you live. And it's just, I especially if you already have automatic and online registration, I don't see the need for it. You've given plenty of opportunity for this person to register to vote. And they have to register to vote in time for you to be able to double check their information if you want to.
So the reason you would do same day registration is like if you move places. I could see how that could be. So like if you move from say you were talking about Michigan, if you went from like the northern half of Michigan and you moved to the southern half, right? But your address on the old registration is up there. You don't want to drive 4.5 hours there and 4.5 hours back just to vote. Why wouldn't you just change your address same day?
Well, then why wouldn't you just change your address online unless you're moving election day? Like, go on and re-register with your new address.
So the whole point of the same day one is the convenience part. It would be convenient to change. So I figure some people may not get their registration back in time versus if it was same day.
But they're not getting their registration back same day anyway. And if
they're getting the ability to vote same day.
Without any level of verification, though. Like, I walk in with a fake ID with a fake address, or a real ID and a fake address, or whatever, and they have even if you're going to tell me like the government doesn't go and verify addresses, they don't even have the option at that point. Mm-hmm. They can't, like, if they smell something fishy, there's no choice to go double check because that person's ballot's already going to be cast.
You can always do a social security check.
Could go after.
I don't know if they could have a fake social security number. I mean, people fish up dead people's social security numbers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really the first bullet point I have issue with. I guess I can understand an argument against it, but especially with the first 2 points, automatic and online, I really don't see the need for it.
If you only had to give me like one of those, I would definitely choose like same day. I was like, okay, like that one probably we don't need if we have automatic and online.
Yeah.
Like I could live with that being out.
If I had to pick, I would probably choose automatic.
It'd be a lot
easier. Let's just get everyone registered as soon as they turn 18.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we automatically draft people,
Right.
Like
so
the government, whenever you turn 18, the government already knows your address. They know your social security number. They know where you live. They know how old you are. So
yeah. It's not like it's not impossible to do. It's easy.
Yeah, right. If you're going to send out a draft card, send out their voter registration stuff.
Right.
Like,
and I guess if you move, just register again. Register online.
Yeah,
that's where I can see the online part.
Right. And like I said, I'm totally fine with doing the first 2. I really don't see a problem. It's just when you have the first 2, why are we throwing in the third? That's in my mind, more unreliable and unverifiable.
I don't know that there's necessarily even a big problem with like same-day registration being abused. I mean, I really don't. But if we get the other two and it puts you guys' mind at ease to take, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I would take the two.
So in a negotiations, that's one you're willing to give up if I was to give you the other two.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, history shows same-day voting is very fraudulent. I'm just saying.
It's at least got much more potential for fraud.
I understand how it could look bad.
Right.
I'm not gonna say the opportunity isn't there for it to be abused, but I think like the total number of votes is negligible at most.
I don't.
Most people agree. I mean, I don't have the proof to say otherwise, so I'm not going to say otherwise.
The only thing I got is based off history, the fact that we had immigrants come right off the ship, had no jobs. Industrial plants would say, "Hey, we'll give you a job, but you got to vote for this senator or this whatever. You got to do it today. You'll go in, you'll vote for him, fake ID, real address. You're like, all right, we're gonna cut your hair, put a mustache or a beard on you, give you a fake name, real address. You're gonna go do it again, same senator, about 5 times. You're gonna do this. After that, yeah, you come work for my.
Do you have an election reference for our listeners? That way they can look up and see it for themselves.
Oh God,
I can't think of the reference he's making, but wasn't that the whole wasn't that Bleeding Kansas where they sent?
Bleeding Kansas.
Oh, it's for slavery.
Bleeding Kansas was a thing, but this was more for I think it was mostly predominant in New York. You would get these Italian or someone immigrants. They would come off the boat. They need a job, and they'll do anything for a job. And if a company tells you,
they're
we'll
coming
hire
to America.
They said, we'll hire you. This is all you got to do. We'll hire. We don't care what you know how to do. This is what you got to do. Just go vote for this guy who's gonna, help us in the long run with our, taxes and stuff.
And we're gonna get to that part of the bill where it discusses like voter intimidation or voter persuasion, bribery, essentially. But I think overall, we're pretty much in agreement. Like if we in a negotiation setting, I'm more than willing to give you guys the first two if we cut out the third.
Okay.
But that's my personal opinion. So the next point is make Election Day a federal holiday. So I don't particularly care. Like, you know what? Probably should be a federal holiday in my mind. It gives more people the opportunity to go vote consequence-free. They don't have to take off work. They don't have to do anything special. That's the day. That's what they're going to do. It also encourages in-person voting, or same-day voting, which I think is a good thing. It's tallied more quickly, and if we have large-scale in-person voting as opposed to mail-in or absentee, it makes it not take 4 fucking weeks to get an accurate count of all the ballots.
Yeah, plus, it's only every 2 years, so.
Yeah. I don't understand why it wouldn't be. Or what's your argument against it, unless you just wanted people to have to take off work, which seems a little weird. And I'm sure there's a corporate Republican argument, like, why should employers have to pay you for a day off to go vote? And it's like, well, fuck, because we live in America. Like, this is what we do.
It's our civic duty.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I could say is that's really only going to benefit certain people. So certain jobs don't get federal holidays off. Like, the food guy at McDonald's doesn't get federal holidays off.
Right.
So it's going to privilege more moderate income people with stable jobs, office jobs, stuff like that. That's really the only gripe I have about it. You guys got anything for making it a holiday?
No, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
It should definitely be a holiday.
Yeah. I like I said, there's just no you're not going to present to me an argument in which I'm going to buy that it shouldn't be.
Right.
Okay, voting rights restoration to people with prior felony convictions. That's pretty straightforward. Should felons have the right to vote?
No.
Why?
I say that depending on what you did. So I'm not gonna have a guy who did triple homicide somehow gets out, and then he can vote. I mean, he's no longer he proven he cannot form to society.
That's
Hey.
so. I agree with you. So I want to first open this up to: should felons currently serving a sentence be able to vote? Currently in prison, still serving their sentence.
No, not still in prison. No.
Okay. What about felons that have been paroled?
So typically, like, the magic number is 7 years, for voting. So, like, if you're a felon, like, if you commit a felony at 18, like, you may go to jail for 3 years, but that felony will stay with you for 7 years on, like, voting wise. So you couldn't vote. So even though you may get out of jail at 21, you can't vote until you're 25. And some people are like, no, you shouldn't be allowed to vote ever. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. He was 18. I don't care what he did, to be honest with you.
Well, if he chopped up and ate 3 people, I'm for sure don't. He doesn't get to.
Well, he may not. He may have forfeited his right to live at that point.
Yeah.
But let alone vote. But I like, to be honest with you, like, even if it's like murder of one guy, like, he serves his term and then he gets out and he serves his time after. Like, I don't see a problem letting him vote. People can change.
I mean, they can. It's just hard. I think my main beef with this is what determines a felony. It's not so much should felons be able to have the right to vote. It's there's a lot of people in jail for walking around with an ounce of pot, and that's a felony. You know, it used to be in all 50 states, and that person should be able to vote. Like, he wasn't hurting nobody. He just had weed. You know, of course, the argument against that is the person who is, not saying the dominant number of them aren't serial killers. Most felons in the United States are not serial killers, but I think there needs to be a discussion had about what felonies actually lose you the right to vote, and the right to bear arms. Perfectly honest.
So yeah, but staying on voting, I think like, if you have to choose all or none, like, either all felons get to vote or no felons get to vote, I would rather have the 100,000 that are in jail for weed, being able to have the right to vote over the
a couple hundred.
Yeah, a couple hundred.
Well, there's a couple thousand murders in the United States.
Yeah.
So, but I get your point, and it's hard for me to argue with that. I mean, especially so if you guys would give me, if they're currently serving a sentence in a jail, they don't get to vote. So serve your sentence or commuted sentence or get paroled or whatever. 7 years, then you get to vote again. I can make that deal.
I would say you have to. So after 7 years, you have to prove you're now.
After the 7 years?
So in that 7 year span, you have to, I'm trying to think of the word, a functioning member of society. You have
rehabilitate.
You have to prove that you helped your community in some way. You moved forward.
You've got a job. You are.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna have to say, okay, he's out of prison, but then he fucks up, does something bad. Just a small thing, DUI, something.
Well, most prisoners, when they're released, are on parole. So they'd have to keep their nose clean for at least a while. Otherwise, they end up right back in prison.
Right.
So I think that's already kind of covered if we've agreed that people in prison can't vote.
Yeah. I think you, though, have to be a functioning member of society. You have to better your community somehow in that 7 years.
I think it's fair to say that if you're also a felon, you have to pay off your fines, because a bunch of the times you can't pay those fines whenever you're in prison because they're so goddamn high, right?
Yeah.
That's what Florida said. They said, like, you can vote as a felon, but you have to have all your fines paid off. And, well, the only problem with that is then, like, people make the fines ridiculously high.
Yeah.
To where you can't. So that's the only problem I have with that. And interestingly, what's his name? The billionaire Mike Bloomberg. He spent like $30 million in Florida paying off felons' fines in the hopes that they would vote.
And they didn't.
And they didn't.
They didn't get the memo.
Well, at least not enough. Not enough of them. Well, so the thing is, so you can't tell someone, like, hey, I'm going to pay off your fine, in return you vote for Joe Biden. He just had to be like, okay, so this demographic is more than likely to vote Democrat. So I'm going to pay their fines. in the hopes that they go vote. But in reality, they were probably just glad to not have the fucking fines.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, like I said, that's bribery. If he's like, all right, I'm going to pay up for fines and you're going to go vote for Joe Biden. You know, you can't outright say that.
Right.
That's a crime. Okay, so I think, like I said, as long as we could agree, you know, serve your time plus 7 years, depending on what your crime is. Which I think is kind of covered by serve your time. You know, the person who killed 3 people is not ever coming out. He's going to be in jail the rest of his life. Or he should, by all, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, we good? Ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, expand early voting and simplify absentee voting.
Okay. For sure should simplify absentee voting.
So, I'm not familiar with the absentee process. I know you have to request one.
Yeah, so they're very, very technical about it. So if your ballot isn't filled out the right way and sealed in the right envelope the right way, they don't count it. They can't count it, technically. So you have to have like a certain envelope. You have to have your stuff bubbled in. You can't like X over the ballot like you can in person. You have to bubble it in. You have to seal it in an envelope. You have to seal that envelope in another envelope, sign it. There's a whole, but you have to have your stamp in the right spot, your signature in the right spot. There's a whole bunch of like technical stuff that they don't tell you actually whenever they send you in the ballot. It's one of those things you're just supposed to know.
Well, they should for sure at least include instructions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm all on board if they want to include instructions, and we call that good. Because then, if you've received the instructions with your absentee ballot, and then you didn't follow them, then like, what's the first thing you learn in school is read the goddamn instructions.
Mm-hmm. Like, thing I learned, real men don't need instructions.
You should probably, I would simplify it. There's no reason to have all these hoops to jump through. Because it doesn't add like an additional verification if you put the stamp in the right corner instead of the left corner. Like, there's nothing there.
As long as the stamp's there.
Yeah, it's like as long as the stamp's there, you know.
And I guess I can see that argument. But again, we're going. I was gonna say we're talking online registration, but this isn't registration. This is actually voting.
This is actually voting, yeah. And it takes forever. Like, part of the reason, like, all these states took forever is because they were counting absentee ballots last, number one. And you have to go through 9 steps to make sure that the person who voted, they went through all the right hoops to vote. So, you're taking, instead of going like, you know, Biden, Trump, Biden, Trump, you just go, you have to take all the envelopes and be like, okay, this passes, it moves down the line. And then they open up the envelope, make sure the stamp is in the right spot, and then they move it down the line. It takes forever.
Yeah, all that verification.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the other part of this, early voting? How y'all feel?
I wouldn't have a problem with it. Honestly, like that could be a good thing. Especially like, so like we really saw what it could do during COVID.
Well, it really disperses, so not everyone.
Yeah.
So one thing I do want to bring up is we discussed like making Election Day a federal holiday.
Like most people don't get. I would say if you're going to do early voting, do it on a weekend where people are most likely off.
Well, so the thing with early voting is they start it, and then you can come vote anytime between then and Election Day, typically. So, like, early voting in our state started, like, a week or 2 weeks before the actual election.
Yeah.
And, like, the beauty of that is like, so if you only make Election Day a holiday, everyone's got to go vote that day. Or at least a large percentage of people are going to go vote that day. That means you're waiting in line 2-3 hours to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And by all means, you should be willing to wait that long to vote, to make your voice heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but at least if you expand early voting, you can cut that wait time down. Like, look, I'm not saying voting should be the easiest thing in the world.
It's a big decision.
I mean, yeah, you need to consider your options, and please, for the love of God, inform yourself. Like, don't just vote party lines. The idea that we have a straight party line voting on the ballot is ridiculous.
Yeah.
In my mind. You need to make yourself informed on the issues, informed on the policies, and I'm not even saying, like, you don't have to do it for your county clerk, but for the president and your senators and your reps, please. Like, these are the people that are deciding policy on your behalf. Don't just vote for them because they got an R or a D next to their name.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a little bit off topic. So early voting, I don't see a problem with it. simplifying absentee voting. I like the verification, especially for absentee voting. But we're going to get into how they kind of
For early voting, technically, like if you went early, that was technically an absentee ballot. That was just an in-person absentee ballot.
That's odd.
So, well, those jumped through all the procedures. Like those were counted fast, but the actual like mail-in absentee, like those took forever. But, all right. Well, what's next on the?
Oh, let's see. Prohibit voter purges that kick eligible voters off the registration rolls. So, my understanding of this is that there are certain procedures in which they can remove you from the voter registration rolls if you haven't voted for voted for several election cycles, and this is state by state, of course. Voted for several election cycles, or under different circumstances. There was an article I read that went into a little bit more detail, but I can't perfectly recall it. So I don't know how I feel. With online voter registration, I don't see, like, if you've gone 5 years without voting, like, you could always just re-register online. So I don't see a problem with them purging the voter rolls of people who, like, let's say 10 years. If you haven't voted in 10 years, we're going to kick you out the voter rolls. And if you're wanting to vote in another election, then, and of course they should also, when they kick you off the voter rolls, they should probably send out a notification saying, hey, you haven't voted for 10 years, you're off. If you want to vote in the next election, you need to re-register at this website, go through this.
Two election cycles, 8 years?
Yeah.
Two elections.
So that'd be 4.
Yeah, if you ain't voted in 10 years, then yeah, I could definitely see it. Now 5 is a bit different because that's really like that's one president. You know? Yeah. Like I can see people being pissed off and not voting in 2016. Most people don't vote in the midterms anyway. So like that right there, that's what 2, 4, 6 years.
Yeah.
That's 6 years right there. Like,
well, so Nick brought up a good point. So why not make it 8?
Yeah.
Split the difference. So if you haven't voted in 8 years, that's 4 different election cycles. So you got a midterm, a president, a midterm, and a president.
And it's not like you're banned for life, you know. Like
right.
You can always re-register.
Yeah. They'll send you a thing in the mail saying, "Hey, you need to register again if you're going to vote."
Right. That would be my thing. Is they need to send out a notification that says, "Hey, you've been kicked off the voter rolls for not voting for the past 8 years. If you want to re-register, here's where you re-register." Okay. That's it.
Yep. And again, that's where online voting would come in handy.
And of course, so these are policy advocacies that we would agree on. We're going over these bullet points and doing some give and take just between us. I don't know the actual language of the bill. I don't know if this is actually what the bill would do. This is just us discussing the bullet points, quote unquote, of the bill. Right. Let's see. Enhance election security with increased support for paper-based voting systems and more oversight over election vendors. I'm all about that.
I don't think anyone's gonna fight that.
I think the election should be federal. I don't think your Schmo Joe from Taco Bell should be running.
Oh, you're talking about volunteers? Mm-hmm. Volunteers running the election. Well, the problem is that if you don't have volunteers, you have to pay them.
And the government's broke because we keep dishing out
I'm all for volunteers, but there definitely needs to be some government overwatch, making sure everything's accounted for.
Honestly, I think if you're willing to volunteer time to go like you're talking like 12 hours at least.
Okay,
I could say the volunteers at my voting location were all extremely courteous. Like I can't imagine. Most of these are old retired people, at least in our state. Like, you know what? I'm willing. The old bloods don't have as much hostility as us young bucks. Like, we all get ramped up and fired up, and they're like, man, I've been through 12 presidents, I'm fine.
And they've done it for a long time, too. I don't think most of them are out to steal your vote.
Right.
I'm not saying most of them, but I still think there should be government overlook.
Oh, yeah, so that's what...
So we have that.
Yeah, but in this bullet point, it talks about more oversight over election vendors.
Hey, I'm fine with that.
So, yeah, I have absolutely no problem with the government wanting to take a more stern stance on making sure that the way they're conducting these procedures is by the book. Like, that's, I'm all about it. Like, more election security, it's going to hopefully make more Americans feel secure in each election and really just decrease the temperature when you lose. And look, losers are always going to be upset. Republicans were upset this time. Democrats were upset in 2016. Like, losers are always going to be upset about it. But I think shoring as much of this up as possible, even if you're saying like 99% of this election was secure, if you want to shore up that 1% as much as you can, I'm all about it. That's just bottom line. Nick?
I mean, I definitely think, again, there needs to be government controlled. At least the government officials there make sure everything's running how it's supposed to be. Nothing shady, anything going on. Not saying there's
nothing illegal.
Not saying that that's happening, but it would definitely make a lot of people, like you said, feel at ease.
Yeah, I want a Fed there going, why the fuck are ballots?
I mean, fuck.
Showing up on pallets out of unmarked white vans being dropped off at 2 in the morning.
I mean, fuck. Your processed meat has fucking FDA officials for 2 hours inspecting it to make sure it's quality. Processed meat has to go through more hoops than our fucking election does.
Well, so not the problem, but the reason that is because the feds don't step in on state elections. It's very minute standards. The states dictate and then are responsible for overwatch.
And it's not you're not going to get as much oversight from the feds. You're going to get oversight from the parties.
Yeah.
So like it's going to be like members of your state GOP and the members of your state Democrats that are going to be watching what's going on at each... And they don't watch every single one. It's like some counties have like 500 people in them. And it's like, okay, well, you can either watch that or you can watch the one with 500,000 people in it. It's like, well, they're going to send like 4 to the one with 500,000 people in it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to throw the town with 500 people probably voted Republican.
Probably.
Yeah, just going to throw that out there. But,
probably.
Okay. Seems like we're kind of all on board with increased security and...
Yeah, no reason not to. If it would shut up to stop the steal people, fine, I'm game.
Right. I mean, would it though? That's the question.
No.
You wouldn't really?
Losers always going to be sore losers, but the key is keeping the numbers of people that feel gypped as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, end partisan gerrymandering by establishing independent redistricting commissions.
See, now I thought this was the most interesting part that I had read, because if there was ever a time for the Democrats to power grab, they haven't been able to gerrymander since JFK.
Yeah.
So,
that's like... it's impressive for the Democrats to even consider in a gerrymandering year to give up that power. So, if you don't know what gerrymandering is, so each state you have 2 senators that represent the whole state, but the districts for your House representatives are drawn by gerrymandering. So if you ever looked up like your House districts for your state and you saw like, man, that's a really weird shape. Why are they drawing it like that? Because it's never the little square. It's always some really screwed up looking bullshit, and that's gerrymandering. And Republicans have gotten to draw the map for a pretty long time. And the problem with it is you can always jigger it to give you an advantage. So, let's say you've got LA in one. So you want to gerrymander, and it's like, okay, I've got to account for all the Democrats in LA. So I'm going to take this huge swath of rural California where I'm going to get more Republican votes, and I'm going to cram them into the same district. That way I can try to counterbalance the Democratic population of LA.
Yeah. So what gerrymandering allows for it to do, so you can have a state with majority Democrats, and ideally you would have majority members in the House representing that state, right? So like if your state is 51% Democrats, 51% of your representatives roughly would be Democrat. But the idea with gerrymandering is that so like some states, like I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of states that are gerrymandered bad to where like they're like close to 55% Democrat and they only win like a quarter of the House seats. It's like that is gerrymandering at its finest.
Yeah, that's some good goddamn gerrymandering. And honestly, I'm all for so the question obviously with this one for me is who the independent committees are. And I think for me, it needs to be a state-by-state thing. Like, we need Oklahomans deciding...
Well, then you're just going to run into the same problem. It'd have to be a federal thing. The problem is that basically the Constitution says that states get to conduct their elections however the fuck they want. So, like...
But states don't get to gerrymander themselves.
No, but... Well, they kind of do.
Well, for the state congressional
No, I think
seats,
they get to... Do states not to get to pick the districts for their that they send to Washington?
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
Because gerrymandering is always at the federal level.
I think they get told their districts.
I mean, so your House representatives at the time might get a say in how you're...
Okay.
But like I said, I think the big question for me here is who the independent committees are.
You got to have some trust in your government.
I don't.
Well,
I
then
don't
why
have
vote?
to have none.
Then why vote?
Because then I get to bitch about it.
You get to bitch even if you don't.
Nope. If you don't vote, you don't get to bitch.
That's not true.
Yep. You didn't.
That's not
That's true. Don't vote unless you're under the age of 18. But you're bitching anyway if you're that young. So
There's nothing wrong with being pissed off at the system.
there is when you didn't try to do anything about it.
Do what?
Vote.
What would that do?
Elect somebody you think who could fix the system,
But you still lost.
or try to.
What if you still lost?
No, that's
Well,
not
you
even
can
the
be
point.
upset.
It's not even the point. It's one vote.
Yeah, one vote matters. Every vote matters.
Not in our fucking
Every
state.
voice has to be heard.
Depends
our
on what
fucking
state you
state.
live in. Yeah.
That's Democrats in our state kind of get the shaft.
Yeah.
But
America.
yeah. Republicans in California get the shaft.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of just the way. Except for
Interesting fact: more Republicans live in California than in Texas.
that is interesting.
Yeah.
But only two states, is Kansas and Maine, divvy up their electoral votes
Yeah.
based on percentages. So like if you win 50% of the votes of the popular vote in Kansas, you actually get 50% of the electoral votes. Same thing. I don't think it's the exact same thing in Maine, but it's something similar. I think it's 3 districts.
Yeah.
But I think that's all about wrapped up on that. Gerrymandering. Overall, I think gerrymandering is just a political power move, and I'm glad to see it be gone.
If you ever want to see like gerrymandering at like its best, look up Dan Crenshaw's district in Houston. That is a gerrymandered district.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, I guess is Houston. Well, I mean, it's a dense city. Like it's
Air
probably.
air quotes Houston. It's
Oh.
not really Houston. What's the next one? While I go find this.
Oh, let me see here. So this is the last one of this first topic here. Prohibit providing false information about the elections process that discourage voting and other deceptive practices. So this is definitely one I feel like the devil's in the language. Like who gets to decide what's deceptive? Who gets to decide what's discouraging?
I feel like the courts do.
Yeah.
The courts would decide what you said was clearly deceptive.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd be okay with that. So if you feel like your state, so if you like, holy shit.
Yeah, so that is his district, right? It goes all the way around. So like each of those little ones, those are also districts. So he is like considered a Houston representative, and it goes boop boop boop
All the way
all the
around
way-
Houston.
all the
and
way around. Houston.
Doesn't even touch Houston.
Yeah, so look at that. That's insane. Anyway, what was this next thing?
Prohibit providing false information about the election processes that discourage voting and other deceptive actions. And I said my main issue with that is who decides. Who decides what's deceptive and discourage? And Nick brought up the courts. And honestly, I could see that. Like, all right, so you feel like someone's got to bring a suit against you. Like, I feel like you lied to me about this, so I'm going to bring a suit, and we're going to decide if you actually did or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best way to do it. Now, I don't know if that's what they've got in the bill planned to
Would
do.
that work for politicians? Say a person running for president, and he said, "This is what I'm going to this is what I'm going to do in president," and then he flips his idea.
Well, no, this is specifically about the election processes.
Yeah, so like,
But
So
say
you tell people you can go vote the day after voting ends. I think would be.
yeah,
this, yeah,
but
you can't.
But say the person running for president tells you that this is what he's going to do, and then completely flips his view as soon as he's elected.
Well, that just makes him a politician.
Good one.
So,
That's
it's
clear
really,
deception.
really hard getting stuff done through our government, and it's not necessarily that the politicians don't want to do what they promised. Although I think that maybe they're not as enthused about it as they made it out on the campaign trail. But it's actually really, really difficult to get shit done in this.
So
government.
okay,
Well, not just that, but I want to add to that, like, so the Oval Office changes things, I imagine. No matter what you've done on the campaign trail, there's information that only the president is privy to. And, you know, like, do aliens exist? Because if aliens exist, that might change your whole political view on the Space Force.
Yeah.
So Biden and Kamala Harris made fun of the Space Force when they were running, you know?
Yes, Baker Mayfield.
And
they
then you
exist.
become president and you find out that there's fucking aliens, and you're like, shit, we need a Space Force because we got to fight the aliens.
So my thing is, like, actually, so Joe Biden said he had a plan for COVID-19, and after he was elected, he said, I have no plan for how to deal with COVID-19. That's a clear deception.
Yeah, he was just bullshit.
1 out of 10 people said they knew that, they wouldn't have voted for him.
Well, to be fair,
Is he held accountable?
But
He said he had a plan to deal with COVID, and then came out and said, we
he
have
said-
no idea to deal
He
with
said
COVID.
he didn't inherit a plan. That's what he said after he was elected. And he said he had to revamp the rollout of the vaccine.
He was still full of shit.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So, like, that's a clear deception. He clearly ran on,
it's the same
I
thing.
can
Like,
fight COVID, and then he's like, I can't fight COVID.
I'm not gonna stop the oil and gas. First, no more new drilling and fracking. Then, whoa, I never said no more drilling and fracking. What are you talking about? Becomes president. No more drilling and fracking.
I'm not saying
I was
Trump,
right the
I'm
first
not
time.
saying Trump did that. Trump definitely did that. They pulled up like,
Right, so
did
this
you
is-
say this? And he says no, and then they pull up the tweet, and he goes, that's not me, man.
Yeah, just in all fairness, this is not a Biden issue. This is a president issue.
This is a
You know,
politician
if you get-
issue. Like,
Yeah.
they're running clearly on deception. Should they be held accountable on that?
Well, so again, the bullet point here was specifically being dishonest or discouraging about the election process.
They're talking about Facebook and Twitter, and they're talking about the fucking Q people. That's what they're talking about.
Oh, honestly, I think it's reasonably assumed it's like saying that your vote doesn't matter. Like, that could reasonably be deceptive and discouraging.
Yeah.
No matter how true it is. Like, it can be specific. Like, why would a Democrat here go vote if you told them that? And it just discourages them,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Right.
like I said, my main deal with this is pretty broad language here, and I would want to know who's going to decide. If it's the courts, fine. You know, if a suit has to be brought against you and then they're going to decide based on this, then okay, let's do that.
Okay.
But, and I don't want election misinformation. You know, I don't. From media outlets, from individuals, from anything. I want Americans to be able to feel confident about our elections. That's why I'm so for extra security. Like, I want you to watch the elections come and be like, okay, you know what? This is actually, like, I feel confident that no one's lying to me. No one's trying to pull the wool over my eyes. No one's trying to pull a fast one. Like, we're just...
I would say that goes into how informed are you really? Like, are you just reading Facebook articles that some schmo Joe posted, or are you like actually doing your research?
If you thought the election was stolen, you probably didn't know what the fuck you were talking about. Because that's the biggest thing that these election officials and all these people said. They were like, look, I mean, I get how from an outside perspective this looks, you know, maybe out of whack, but like to people who volunteered and people who've done this their whole lives, this is completely normal. Like, like nothing was out of the ordinary here. Like, that's part of the reason they got laughed out of court, is because they were like, no, this happens every year. Like, this is normal.
Just there was such a close eye on it maybe this year because it took
Yeah.
so long. I mean, yeah, anyway, that's a different topic. So we're actually on to the second part of the bill. Man, just by the big bold letters that headline the title, it's reduce the influence of big money in our politics. So just right off the bat, I think we can all just get on board with that. Like, maybe stop having corrupt corporations pulling strings on our politicians.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
This would be ideal. Like, so first bullet point: require secret money organizations that spend money in elections to disclose their donors.
Okay.
So how are we feeling about that?
Yeah, I like it.
So, personal opinion, I think who you donate to is your own business, especially in such an adversarial climate. Who was it down in Texas? Was it Buttigieg?
O'Rourke.
Was it O'Rourke? They were doxing Republican businesses, like
I
businesses
have no
that
idea.
donated.
No, I have no idea.
Somebody was doxing Republican businesses who had donated to the Donald Trump campaign. They did in California too, and that's what scares me because you give them the opportunity to be victimized based on their political beliefs, and that's especially corporations is one thing. If I want to know where Coca-Cola puts its money in politics, but an individual. As just a single business owner, just because he owns a business, all of a sudden he's got to disclose what he does with his money?
Yeah. No, I agree. No, he should. He should definitely disclose.
Why?
Because I feel like we should know where a politician's money comes from.
I mean, that's a fair argument. You have a right to privacy that doesn't include abortion until the Supreme Court decided to fuck that all up.
A conservative court, too.
Yeah, fuck them. Nick?
I mean, I kind of agree that what I do with my money is no one's business.
As an individual?
Yes.
So why would you agree that individuals shouldn't have to disclose their political donations?
Nope, them too.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Especially, I mean, I could get behind if it was like a low amount. But, especially like the higher level donations, yeah you should have to disclose it. Not you personally, but like the campaign. Yeah.
So what if the way they disclosed, we had it broken up? So it wasn't names, but it was industries. So like literally, you'd have it done like how much money was donated by Big Oil,
giving them
Pharma.
Giving them anonymity. You're making them anonymous. And
the corporations, but still the whole like.
I don't know. Again, it's my privacy. What I do with my money on a personal level is no one's business on my own.
Until it affects me.
How is it affecting you other than
it's
going to it's going to a person that you don't agree with.
You're influencing the politician who may control an aspect of my life. I deserve to know why you're giving him the money. Or who's giving that politician?
I support that politician.
Or that politician.
Do I have to tell you what charities I donate to, even though they might affect you?
You have to tell the government.
Yeah, but you're not the government. Why should I have to tell you?
Well, you don't have to tell me, but if I ask your campaign, who are you getting money from, it would at least offer insight to the positions that they have.
But they're not going to say me by name. They can say personal donations.
Yeah, so what if we did that? What if corporations have to disclose full disclosure? All right? But individuals, you could lump them together and say individual donations.
Mm-hmm. Well, then they're just going to do the loophole, and they're just going to donate, instead of with their corporations, they're just going to donate individually. And it's
so like the CEOs are going to take money?
It's going to be the same problem. That would solve nothing.
I don't think you should force people or anyone to say where my money goes. I don't think that anyone should tell me how I can spend my money.
But where your money goes may affect me. And you.
Yeah, but it's still my choice where to put that money.
It's my money.
Right, but it's my politician. like it's my president.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
But it's not. It's
everybody's president. Yeah, it's your money, but it's everybody's president.
I don't have to tell you what I pay on. I don't have to tell you what I pay on bills every month.
It doesn't affect me.
It does.
Good.
Who you?
I have to tell you what I pay in taxes.
Okay, so how much do you guys trust politicians?
Not a lot.
Okay. So, do you think that maybe if a politician is getting, let's say, $30 million for a super PAC from Big Oil, do you think that that's something that the citizens should know?
Probably, but like I said, Big Oil.
If a Democrat, let's say a Democrat is getting money from Bill Gates, and you guys aren't for vaccine mandates, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not for vaccines.
So let's say that a politician, after getting money from Bill Gates, all of a sudden wants to
microchip everybody.
Yeah, is that would that not be nice to know that the reason they're doing that is because of Bill Gates, and then we can figure out how do we stop this? Can we boycott Microsoft? Can we not vote for the guy who's going to give us vaccine mandates? Because he doesn't have to tell you he's going to do vaccine mandates.
Mm-hmm. So you would use these registrations or these disclosures to try to figure out what policies they're going to advocate for.
Not even necessarily that, just like in general. So like if you're getting a whole bunch of money from a certain group, it can give us insight to why your policies face that way. So like
if you're getting a whole bunch of money from big oil, it makes sense why you're not green energy.
Yeah. So
again, that's a company though. That's not a personal level.
Well, even if it was an individual, like if the Koch brothers, like they bought and funded the Republican Party for a long time before. I know at least one of them has passed. I don't know if the other one is still dead or is dead or alive. But
I know they treated the one that died like shit though.
What if I just vote? What if I just say I send money to Donald Trump for his campaign just because I want Donald Trump as president? I agree with all his policies. I'm not trying.
Well,
to
I don't
force
think there's anything wrong. For one, you don't say why you donate; you just donate. And I don't think there's anything wrong with buying into an agenda, and then wanting your money to go towards that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why.
Yeah,
like why
way.
do you like why do you like? That's what I don't understand. Like, why do you guys care? Like, if someone saw that your money went to Donald Trump, it's like, yeah, because I reflect those values.
Well,
and if
because
you're worried about
BLM
them,
was shooting Trump supporters in the street.
and if you're worried about people knowing who you vote for, it's like, well, people already are kind of open about who they vote for. We no longer
it's very easy
hide
to find.
it.
It's very easy to find.
Like, I could find out through your Facebook who you voted for. I promise.
Well, just based on what you post, yeah.
No,
Yeah. Not even that. Like if I just saw your feed, I could tell you.
You can go to your county, whatever county. I know in our state.
I can tell what you're
you can-
registered as.
You can go to your your county, and it's all on. Basically, all in file. Who you voted for, what year.
I think my problem with individuals is there is the potential for backlash, like violent backlash.
Like Garrett said, yeah, they were shooting Trump supporters in the streets.
Yeah, at least one they have on tape. There's a Trump supporter here. Pow! Like,
You don't see how that's bad, Wyatt?
Well, he didn't donate, so it's not even like it's not related.
But you see, you could
know what I'm
see how if everyone knows who you donated to, and say they know you, and they don't really agree with you, and they hate you, and then that person's dead now. It's a really extreme idea, but it could happen.
there's a lot of division in this country right now on the basis of politics.
Especially if it's like a small business.
If we could at least agree that individuals don't have to. And individuals still have a limit. Right? Like, so you can only donate like $5,000 as an individual.
Yeah, but you can donate as much as you want to the party. There are ways around it.
So why not, let's just shore that up then. How about you can, as an individual, you can either donate $5,000 to the party or you donate $5,000 to the candidate.
I still
Never happened.
I would still see a problem. Like, say you got a mom and pop shop.
Won't ever happen. You can't. The government will not put a cap on how much you guys or how much people can donate. Won't ever happen.
Yeah, 'cause
So you're firm, like everyone has to disclose where their money's going.
There's a lot of risk in that I see.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like that.
And you're just not willing to budge on it at all.
At least
it's got to be everyone.
Well, I mean, like at least if it was over a certain amount.
So you're talking like a monetary amount. So if it's over $1,000.
I could even go higher than that, honestly. Like if it was over $5,000, I'd be like, yep.
Okay. I mean, I could get behind that.
Yeah.
So if it's over $5,000 in a year donated to the party or a candidate, you have to disclose.
That's fair.
I can get that.
Yeah. The big donors, at least.
I mean, I'll come a little your way on it. I'd rather individuals not have to anyway, but why
corporations for sure. Well, corporations already have to. It's just hard to find those in like unless you know what you're looking for in those financial statements, you're never gonna find it.
My only problem is you're essentially doxing businesses.
Yeah, they're doxing themselves.
No,
but
if you want to know, like what you're like if you wanted to know what Nike donates to, go to SEC.gov and you can find their 10K and it'll tell you right where they donate.
These big, I'm talking like your smaller like mom and pop shops, who say aren't in the best neighborhood and they vote and they send money to Trump, and then that store gets burnt down because they sent money to Trump. That's my problem. You're essentially doxing these people.
I really don't think anyone would go burn some mom and pop store.
Man, they shot a dude in the chest at point blank.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't because he donated to Trump. It's because he
supported Trump.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with his donation. Like he would have gotten shot regardless.
But I'm saying you're asking.
And I'm not
if
justifying.
If he voted Democrat, he probably wouldn't have gotten shot. Like if he supported Joe Biden, he probably wouldn't have gotten shot.
I'm saying you're essentially you're doxing these people who just want to support somebody, and in this division of the country, that's a risky move.
I don't disagree. And ideally, I would like to see that tension come down and feel more comfortable about it. But like I said, I'll come a little bit your way. If it's over $5,000, then the individual has to disclose. But you know what? If you're donating $5,000 to a political campaign, you probably got money. Like, you can afford,
yeah.
You're safe. You're in an uppity part of the neighborhood.
Gated community.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, I want wealthy people to be able to feel safe too. But I bet they feel a lot safer than most already.
What's next?
Let's see. Upgrade online political spending transparency rules to ensure voters know who is paying for the advertisements they see.
Nah.
Yeah, so this one I find a little irrelevant. I've never seen a Biden or a Trump commercial that I didn't know. Like, okay, I don't really care who paid for it. I know who you're supporting.
Yeah.
Like, it's. Yeah. I've never seen a political commercial and I had to be like, what candidate are they for?
Yeah.
You know, it's very clear, cut and dry.
Yeah.
I find this one to be a little irrelevant.
Yeah. We can skip to the next one if you want.
Yeah, it's. Okay, so create a small donor-focused public financing matching system, so candidates for Congress aren't just reliant on big money donors to fund their campaigns and set their priorities. I find this one totally relevant too. If you want to start a grassroots funding campaign, by God, do it yourself. Why do we need to federalize that process?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with it either way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, I guess it seems like a waste of taxpayer dollars to me. When you could force the individual to do it themselves, if that's what they wanted to do. Nick, you got any other input?
No.
Okay. So where are we falling on it? Like,
yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I wouldn't.
I ain't gonna die on that hill.
Yeah, I have no strong feelings about it.
Okay. Strengthen oversight rules to ensure those who break our campaign finance laws are held accountable. I'm 100%. Fuck yeah.
Won't ever happen. Won't ever happen. It is so hard to get accountability in politics because at the end of the day, like Democrats protect Democrats, Republicans protect Republicans.
Yeah.
It's sad truth. It's never going to be any different. You're never going to get anybody on campaign finance. It's just not going to happen.
No, that's unfortunate. I still say that we should try to do more to hold them accountable.
Well, it doesn't matter because you can have the evidence. It won't matter. Like it's my team versus your team.
See, that's just a pessimistic way of looking at it. I'm trying to come at it from a place of optimism.
I mean, that's fine, but it's just the truth. I mean, like, as much, from what little I've seen in politics, it doesn't matter about evidence, it doesn't matter about da-da-da-da-da, it matters, party lines, both ways. Because I think both parties would tell you that, from a Democratic perspective, they would say any Democrat is better, the worst Democrat is better than the best Republican. And I think the Republicans would say the same about Democrats, at least in the elected.
I don't know. I'm willing to throw Mitt Romney right off this R bus.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I think everyone agreed Herbert Hoover was a piece of shit.
So you don't see the point because it's never going to happen. But do you have a problem with being more laws on the books?
No, I don't have a problem with laws being on the books, but I think we have a complicated system of laws anyway because we can't enforce them. So at some point, you'd have to set up an independent way to do it.
So part of this is ensure those who break our campaign finance laws are held accountable.
Yeah, I mean,
how are you going to ensure that?
By all means, go for it, but I just don't see it happening. Give it your best shot, but it's not going to happen. Nothing's ever going to.
Oh, I mean that's fair.
Done on that front.
You just don't have any hope for anything actually being done, no matter what they do.
No.
That's a fair point of view. I still say go ahead, go shoot your shot.
Go for it, I guess. But I mean, until you get somebody, I'm not gonna buy in. I'm sorry.
So this is the second bullet point. The next bullet point goes to that. Overhaul the Federal Election Commission to enforce campaign finance law. So they're actually going to empower a section of the government to enforce it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd have to strip them of their title. You'd have to if a rep or a senator breaks a campaign finance law, you'd have to make an example out of them. Mm-hmm. Because
all right, you're out.
Yep.
We're gonna have to conduct a new election.
And I'm not gonna care that when people say that we're an elected official. I do not care one bit. If you broke a campaign finance law, you deserve to
be out.
Yep.
I'm 110. Like
Yeah.
when
Like-
Ilhan Omar, all that money went to her husband's brother.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, you're fucking out. Like, and if you're breaking finance law as a Republican, fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't break the law to get into office and then stay in office. You cheated. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Next one is prohibit the use of shell companies to funnel foreign money in U.S. elections. That's another one I'm totally fucking behind.
Yeah, honestly, you'd think that one wouldn't even have to be on paper. It's so obvious, right? But
Apparently it does. So
And-
we've got businesses, shell companies in Russia that are pumping money into the U.S. elections. That's fucking ridiculous.
and I don't even care if it's our allies. You don't get to, like, it's still foreign money. Like, I don't want England or Israel or France pumping money in our election to force an outcome.
Right, just as much as I don't want China or Russia or North Korea doing it. Not that
Right.
North Korea has a whole bunch of money, but god dang it. You
Right.
stay the fuck over there. Don't make me come over there, because
Yeah.
you ain't gonna like it when I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another one we all seem to be on board with. Like, I don't see why. Yes, do it. Why isn't it already done? Get it through here. Last one on this article is require government contractors to disclose their political spending. I don't have a problem with this either. Part of that.
Say it again.
Require government contractors to disclose their political spending. So if you're going to work for the government, you have to disclose where you put your money. And the reason I'm okay with that is because let's say you're a concrete contractor, right? And you funnel a whole bunch of money into Trump. And then, all of a sudden, your company keeps getting these contracts from the government. They keep winning these bids. It's like, that's fishy. You know, that's borderline bribery.
Yeah.
Like, why not? Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you think that they should take their stocks?
What do you mean? Like it's punishment?
No. I'm saying, like, whenever you're an elected official, do you think they should zero out your stocks, cash them in?
Ooh.
Mm,
I mean, that's a little bit of a different discussion, but I know the problem is that a lot of these, especially during COVID, a lot of these representatives and senators got caught. What's the word I'm looking for here? Why?
Insider trading.
Yeah, insider trading, and that's fucked. Like,
Yep.
you, especially as a government official, you have insight into what policies are going to pass, what aren't, like, and you can make stock choices based on that. So, let's say you know the Democrats are fixing to put a bill to legalize marijuana. So you're like, I'm fixing to buy a whole bunch of cheap marijuana stock, and then as soon as you legalize marijuana, the stock takes off.
Mm-hmm.
That's insider trading. So I mean, I could hear an argument for it. Now, is it fair? But you're a politician. Like, you get a ton of privileges that the rest of us don't get. So you know what? You got to sacrifice a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these, I mean, especially because you could invest, like, so you've got investments in a weapons manufacturer. So you decide, okay, the U.S. Army now is going to switch from this manufacturer to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, son of a bitch! There goes my stock,
Mm-hmm.
taken off.
Yep.
And that's fucked.
Like, so these aren't supposed to be like venture capitalists. These are supposed to be civil servants.
Right.
So, like, they should have no skin in the game financially about their policies.
Yeah.
Because, like, that'll influence whether or not they vote on a bill. That may benefit the rest of America. But because it, hurts them, they may vote against it.
So how about could we come kind of in the middle, and you just freeze their stock options? They get to buy no more. They get to sell none. You can't force. I don't want to force them to sell it, but they can't buy anymore. Their stocks are frozen.
Wouldn't solve the problem because their stocks, you can't freeze the value of the stock. Like, unless the stock value of the company just stayed the same, which is possible, but over 4 years it's not possible. So you would either have to force them to sell it, or, like, really that's the only option. Either force them to sell it, or they can't buy anymore, which is fine. The problem is that the stocks they already own, they can still have those stocks that influence their decisions.
Right. They can still make policy decisions that. So
This is on.
you already own a bunch of marijuana stock, so you're going to vote to pass the marijuana legislation.
So that one is honestly an all or nothing type thing. There's not this system wasn't built for like a gray, like, well, you can just freeze them. Well, it's like, you really can't.
Okay, so just it's kind of black and white to you
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, and there's not many people that want to do that. You're talking about like fringe people on both sides. So like AOC wants to do it, but corporate Democrats don't. I don't know. There's probably a few Republicans who are for it. But what's the next one?
So that's actually the end of that second article.
Okay.
So I believe we are on to the third and final. This is the shortest. Ensure an ethical government accountable to the people. Yep. We gonna argue about that one?
No.
Yeah.
Kind of hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we're just, as a headline, that's all right. For the People Act is hard to argue against. But so let's get to the bullet points. God, I really don't know. There's a lot we're gonna disagree on here, but. Slow the revolving door between government officials and lobbyists, which means you cannot retire as a former senator or House representative or president and become a lobbyist.
Hard thing to legislate, but if there was a way to do it, I'm all game.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're done being a civil servant, you ought to get the fuck out. Not saying you can't run again, just while you're not running, you don't get to go be a lobbyist and make shit tons of fucking money.
Because that's where the real money is.
Yeah.
That's where the real money is.
Alright, second one, expand conflict of interest law. I mean, so my only argument against that is the wording's kind of vague. What are we going to expand it to? But as far as, we shouldn't have conflicts of interest in politics, yeah. I mean, 110%.
Yeah, in general. So, like, I don't know her name, but one of Biden's appointees was a former member of the board on Raytheon. It's a weapons manufacturer. And some bitch, she gets appointed, and our new contract comes out. It's like $70 billion for Raytheon. And it's like, well,
smells like shit, looks like shit, probably shit.
Probably is. It's like, how is that not a conflict of interest?
Right. And
so...
I mean, we're kind of all on board with that then. Like, let's expand some conflict of interest and keep it out. Alright, so third one, ban members of Congress from serving on corporate boards.
Yeah, that's one of them ones that you wouldn't think you would have to say.
Right.
But you do.
And it's sad.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, okay, you were a public official, you have an idea of the inner workings of government. I mean, I could see an argument that's like, well, that's not exactly fair if a corporation wants to hire this person for their political insight as like a political advisor. Like, so, okay, hey, this is the tension, these are the political tensions right now, what do you see coming down the pipe so we can react? Or we can preemptively act. But I'd feel more comfortable if they just weren't doing it.
Yeah, I wish politics in general was as far away from possible from corporations, because I feel like people would trust it a lot more.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be bought and paid for by the biggest corporations in the country.
Yeah, like the 7 that run everything.
That run literally everything.
Yeah. You guys ever seen the graph where it's like, so it's got all the different brands, but they're really owned by like 7. Yeah. 7 companies own like fucking everything.
It's like one. It's like.
One's fucking
Google. So it's an umbrella. So you have one major company. It's how they get away with monopolies. They buy out all these other companies that say you can still run you're still Kohl's. Like, so what? Say Walmart owns Kohl's. It's like, you're still Kohl's. Trust me. All your profits come to me.
Yeah.
It's monopolies, but it's not. It's the
it's
problem.
How they get away with it. So they're gonna have to. You're gonna have to eventually get like Teddy Roosevelt type who's just gonna be like, all right, well, we're busting these sons of bitches up for real.
I mean, it's coming because Republicans are starting to want it, even though corporate Republicans don't, and Democrats are at least paying it lip service. Whether or not they actually want it, who knows? But they're at least paying it lip service. So I mean, I think breaking up these quote unquote monopolies it's coming.
Oh, they're definitely monopolies.
Oh yeah.
Like
I'm just saying they're not monopolies in a traditional sense. Like, they're not Rockefeller monopolies, where it's literally Rockefeller.
Yeah, they're not coercive monopolies. They're a different type of monopoly. So like,
Umbrella monopolies?
No, so like
So like there's a single vision company that deals with glasses and contacts. You're like, oh, but there's a bunch of different brands. It's like, yeah, but they all belong to this one company.
Right.
So you think you're buying a totally different brand of glasses that's cheaper, but it's really not. You're buying that company's, but it's owned by the much bigger company.
Mm-hmm.
There's only really one.
The illusion of choice.
Yeah.
So back in the day, if they wanted you to buy a certain product, like to be a monopoly, it was gunpoint. They were like, you're gonna have to buy this product and da 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 da. But now,
I own everything.
Bill Gates, he's like, he didn't have to tell nobody. He didn't hold a gun to your head. He didn't make you choose Microsoft, right? But you chose Microsoft. Why did you choose? Because it's really the only option. Have you ever tried to use like the Apple version of like Word and Excel and stuff? It's fucking broken, and that's on purpose.
Yeah, they would. So like what these companies do, they'll purposely make all the other things below them shit. So you can buy these glasses that'll break after like 3 weeks, or you can buy these really high expensive ones that'll last 3 years. But in all reality, whichever one you buy really goes to the same person.
Or you could be like Apple and sell everything individually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Amazon is the king of this next one. What they'll do is they'll see like a competitor that's like rising up, and they'll be like, they'll just eat it. They'll just buy it.
Yep.
Even if it's like way over what the market is saying they're worth, they just buy it. Screw it, because they don't want competition.
Yeah. Bezos doesn't, or whoever the fuck is in charge now.
I think it's still Bezos for another few months, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I think he put in like a 6 month.
Trust me, Bezos is still going to be a core part of that corporation.
Well, I think the big thing for him is that he wanted a really flexible schedule.
Yeah.
So like as much as people may or may not like him about like what he does with his money or what he doesn't do with his money.
Almost like it would be his business.
He's a big family man. Like like his daily routine, it spends like half the day with he still drops his kids to school. He's the richest dude on the fucking planet.
so from what I know,
good on him.
He's so the board says step down because of his schedule. He said, "All right, but I'm still going to be on the board."
Yeah.
He's like the head of the board, so he's still dictating what the company's doing. Mm-hmm. He's just no longer the CEO.
Just don't have to be here all the fucking time.
Pretty much. You call him every once in a while, and he'll go yes or no.
Yeah. And most of his money is in stocks anyway, so it's not like he's going to be like killed from a salary perspective.
Right.
He's probably going to take a huge pay cut. And
Well,
that's fine with him. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he's like, oh no. But the one that they were really talking about, like making him step down, was Zuckerberg, because he's not a business guy. He's just a computer nerd.
Yep.
And you talk to anyone who knows business, they're like, get this dude the fuck out of here. He has no idea what he's doing. He accidentally ran into the largest fucking company on the planet.
No, yeah. Accidentally created.
And they're like, look, man, you had your fun, you made your billions, you're still gonna have your billions. Let's let a professional run this fucking show. And
props to him telling him to fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, it's my company, I'm gonna do what I want.
Yeah.
You can get fucked.
I wish you wouldn't sell my shit to Russia.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's bad optics. But no one seems to care.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, nobody deleted Facebook for that.
Yeah. If anything, your phone automatically comes with Facebook.
No shit.
Kind of is a forceful thing.
I wonder how much they have to pay Apple every year to have their phones automatically have Facebook, and YouTube too. Anyway, all right, so we about wrapped up there.
Yep.
This next one's gonna be pretty easy too. Require presidents to publicly disclose their tax returns.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Shit.
Hell yeah, they should.
Whether they should or shouldn't, I don't care. So, you want it that bad, I'll give it to you. I don't care.
Most of them do. We've only had one in a long time. In a long time not do it. And we don't know why. Now,
it's under audit.
I don't... okay. Fuck
He got a lot of money.
Fuck.
Got an audit. Can't disclose my money.
Fuck off.
Just saying.
I think it's... I don't know. We'll learn. I think, number one...
the court subpoenaed him.
We found out he was not as rich as he said he was.
Yeah.
Is what we found out. And now the problem is that he's damaged his reputation so much. His property values are next to nothing now, because nobody wants to fucking buy it. No one will lend him money, but he still owes them money. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So
Still make
Yeah, like I said, I ain't gonna fight over it. Y'all want it that bad, you can have it.
how many years, if you were to like? So like, I think it's unrealistic to say like lifetime, right? But like
I don't care.
7. I think 7's the magic number, right? When financials, right?
I think you're legally supposed to keep your tax history for 7 years.
I think they can call on it whenever, but as an accountant, I was always told 7.
Oh, okay, 7 years. Like I
7
said,
years.
I could give a shit. Really don't care. Next one. Overhaul the Office of Government Ethics to ensure stronger enforcement of ethics rules.
Nah, you can't. It's
Yeah.
because the problem with ethics is it's not so much a legal argument; it's an ethical argument,
Yeah.
and it's hard to enforce that because you can't take them to jail, you can't strip their title, you can't strip their salary, you can't.
But
do
you just
nothing.
have to take away their job
Like you just
for an ethics
have to
violation.
tell them like, hey, you can't do that again. Because you do it again, then we'll have to. Then they'll do something real. But like the most they can give you is a slap on the wrist the first time.
So just not enough bang for our buck then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily against it, but I'm not seeing like nothing will come out of it. I don't think.
Well, then I'd rather not waste the money on it. To be perfectly honest, I think having stronger ethical rules on the books is probably a good thing.
Yeah. So like
It's a matter of enforcing them. Like
make
you said,
them sign like a
morality
code
clause.
yeah, like a code of ethics or something. Which I think Biden did. I want to say he had like a giant code of ethics that he had everyone in the new Congress sign.
Can he do
Including-
that?
Yeah.
He can mandate a code of ethics for Congress as the executive branch leader?
Mhm.
That's ridiculous.
I think it's like throughout his whole administration. Maybe it was just his administration.
I was about to say, he can't enforce it on Congress because that'd be...
Like overstep?
Yeah.
That's yeah.
So it'd have to be... I'm
It'd
sure
have-
it's
that's
just his
violation.
administration.
Okay.
Like his cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah. His cabinet, all of his agencies.
Which is totally in the realm of his
Yeah.
presidential powers. Like,
Right.
it's just... President can't be stepping in Congress. That's like... We have 3 branches of government.
Checks and balances.
You stay the fucking yours, and I'll stay the fucking mine, except yours runs everything now, and mine's useless. Talking about Congress being useless. But, anyway, alright.
Yeah.
Nick, you got anything on the ethics?
Nah.
Just, alright. Last one of the bullet points. Require members of the U.S. Supreme Court abide by judicial codes of ethics. I find this one preposterous. These are literally the best judges in the country. To imply that they're not already following judicial codes of ethics when they get this job
Mhm.
is preposterous.
I mean, I definitely think that judges in this country typically, and I won't say always, but I will say generally, they are probably the most like ethically wise, at least. Like being able to determine what's right and wrong, and then whether or not they, So like if a judge does something wrong, you can never say like, well, they didn't know. No, motherfucker,
Yeah,
they knew.
Yeah, they just didn't care.
Exactly. So I think, I tend to agree with you. I think it's ridiculous to say that they should be held to an even higher standard. It's like, how much higher can you get than the highest standard,
The highest court in the
Yeah.
land of what could arguably be, like you said, the highest code of ethics is
Mhm.
being a judge, because you are literally determining
Mhm.
guilt and punishment.
Yep.
So I
Not just that, the appropriate punishment too. Like that's it's not just well, you have to be punished. It's like no duh, but like
Yeah,
how?
so like murder's a 15 to 30 year sentence. You got to decide, if he is guilty, then
Mhm.
how many years does he get?
Right.
15 to 30.
Now I will say, once upon a time that was abused. So like during the Vietnam War, like hey, you got in trouble, so you can either. So they would give them the option like over correction, like an over punishment, like wise.
20 years.
Or you can go to Vietnam. And they did this a little bit during like the war in Iraq, like Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I don't know if that was actually Iraq. Was that Iraq?
Afghanistan or Iraq.
That was Kuwait.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's-
Kuwait was Desert Storm 1.
Right.
It was
Anyway,
Desert Storm that turned
Anyway,
to
if
Desert
you've ever
Shield.
seen Jarhead,
Yeah.
they referenced it in that movie. It was apparently less popular than it was in Vietnam, but it was still popular then too. Like they would give you a choice. They kind of quit doing that because they realized how ass backwards that was.
Yeah.
But
Like if you're gonna have a volunteer military, have a volunteer military.
trust me, the last thing you want is some dude who's there because, he killed somebody or something, like some dude, like you would want somebody to make the best military, you would want someone there who wanted to be there.
Right, who wanted to serve.
Right. And I think, yeah.
So, I said wrapping it up on, I just think it's preposterous. I think it's unneeded. I think they're already the highest standard this country has to fucking offer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I said when Trump was throwing all his hissy fits, like, you know what, I'm going to trust the courts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can't trust the courts, you can't trust nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to choose, I'm going to be a little optimistic and say they're not pieces of shit. So, y'all got anything else on this bullet point?
No, I'm all good.
So, all right, so after going over all of it, what do you think of the bill as a whole?
Would you vote yes on it or no on it?
I mean, without
assuming it's all or nothing. So you have to take all of that or none of that.
Woof.
You're gonna have to give some ground on something.
Well, this is how it's coming out. It's already passed the House.
Has it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how the bill is.
So this is out of committee. It's passed the House, but the Senate's gonna get to renegotiate it, and then if the Senate renegotiates, then the Senate will vote on it. If it passes, then it has to go back to the House to get re-voted on.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill.
And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill.
Yes, it did pass the House. I just checked it. Passed the House yesterday.
Okay.
So it's.
I mean, so if it's a straight all or nothing, I mean.
Yeah.
Without seeing all the wording, I honestly, there's a lot more good than I think there's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how
some of it's gonna work. If it's all or nothing, but I would probably vote yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm inclined to say I'd vote yes too. Yeah. I think.
Now I've seen a lot of Republican pundits have been saying like this essentially legalizes ballot harvesting. If you don't know what ballot harvesting is, it's a process in which like a Democrat representative comes to your house because you're a registered Democrat and offers to pick up your vote and take it to the polling place for you. I think there's a lot of room for error in ballot harvesting, so if that is true, I have an issue with that. On its face, if this is entirely accurate and accurately describes what this bill is trying to do and going to do, all or nothing, I'm still inclined to vote yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot more good in it than there's bad.
I tried to find like on C-SPAN or something what the actual vote was, because I don't know that a single Republican voted yes on it.
I don't know what the House split is now.
I think it's 2. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I could probably look on
This is okay. So the one thing it doesn't necessarily tackle is so like it says felons and stuff should vote. It didn't say illegals should have the right to vote, did it?
No.
Okay.
There's also nothing about voter ID in there.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not necessarily against voter ID, or I'm not necessarily for voter ID. Like if you bring a license, like in most states, you have to have at least some way to verify who you are, at least the person who you say they are.
Yeah. I don't see having a voter ID. So especially if you're going to do automatic voter, which I know actually Mitt Romney's planning on trying to add it to it.
Add the voter ID?
Yeah, he's going to try to add voter ID to it.
Honestly, that'd be a decent compromise. Like if I got all of that for, and all I had to do was bring my ID. I bring my ID to vote anyway.
Right.
I drove there. I would be really interested. I'm very curious to know, who doesn't have an ID. If you can't show an ID, I understand, but is it really voter suppression to say, you have to have an ID to vote?
I don't think so.
At least some form of identification.
Right.
Be it Social Security, state ID.
Yeah.
Something.
Even if it's not a driver's license, you got a state ID. Honestly, what I would do is when you automatically register, they should send you back a fucking voting card. A voting ID that you keep with you.
Go to your tag and see, take a picture like a driver's license, and there you go.
Yeah.
And then you're set.
Or what if it's just a paper, like a little slip, like your hunting license, and you have to so you have to bring a voter ID card and your ID. So when all the information has to match, double check, verified, off you go. Go vote. I don't know exactly what Mitt Romney wants to do, but fuck, I mean, get what you can get because, I mean, it's probably going to pass.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what the bill doesn't cover. It doesn't require that counting of ballots mailed after election day. So like if you mail a ballot,
so states still get to decide.
Right. That's what it says it doesn't cover. That was one of the big ones that I'm seeing so far. I'm trying to find the actual vote, and I'm having trouble finding it. Usually it's a very, very easy thing to find.
Yes, as of right now, the Senate is still in session trying to get something done about the COVID-19 relief bill.
Really?
Yeah. It's according to Google News as of 9:57 Eastern Time.
God, Manchin, you gotta cave, bro. Like, we need this. This economic bubble is going to pop. Like, we put a Band-Aid on, like, a artery wound. You know? Like,
we're hemorrhaging right now.
Like, people who don't think this is going to pop don't know nothing about economics. It's just a matter of
honestly, my stocks have been diving all day.
You know, you say that, I've been checking the Dow every day, and it goes up. It may go up like 16 or 15, but all my stocks still continue to go. So I don't know what...
Right, which is odd.
Right. Well, that means that, like, the overall stocks are going up, but, like, the ones that I'm looking at...
are going down.
Are going down.
I wonder if it's because all the Fortune 5s are still going up, and the tiny stuff's going down.
Mm-hmm.
But, alright guys, you guys done? Said all your pieces and whatnot?
No, I think that's it. Alright, well, this has been it from the Refined Peasants.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that little notification bell in the corner, and be sure to let us know if you guys have any ideas for what you want to see from us next. We're a new upcoming podcast. Share it with your friends if you're confident.